What's up, guys? I'm BTC. Summer Games and Lucio Ball are back, but a lot of players seem pretty disappointed about it. Is the event good? Is it bad? But more importantly, how is this going to affect future events? This is going to be part of my Dear Jeff Kaplan series. Those videos are meant to provide suggestions and feedback to the Overwatch dev team so that hopefully we can improve the game. But also, I think that this video in particular needs to reach as many of the Overwatch player base as possible. Because there's been a lot of complaining about this Summer Games 2018. Now, every time there's a new event, a new hero, a new anything, you're going to have people complaining. You know, the whole thing, you can't please everybody all the time sort of deal. But with this particular event, the amount of complaining and people expressing, or at least, maybe not complaining is a good word, people expressing a disappointment or a general dissatisfaction with the event is significantly higher than normal. So while people may not be saying, you know, I hate this event kind of thing, they're just like, you know what, I don't know, this, you know, it's just not really, I don't know, I don't really feel excited for this. And I think that can be a pretty big problem. I really want to give this an even, fair approach, so we're going to talk about both sides of it. The first thing is, we as players need to realize that Blizzard doesn't have to do these events, right? They're free. Not a single one of us had to pay even a single penny in order to get this event unlocked. We even got a free loot box just for nothing on top of it. There's 6 new legendaries, there's 3 new epics, and there's a bunch of voice lines and some other stuff. Now, granted, it's not as much as we would normally get during an event, but the thing is, it's still extra stuff, and we didn't have to pay anything for it. When I was growing up, one of the things that I was taught was to always be grateful for what you get and not what you don't have, particularly when it comes to people giving you gifts or stuff for free, right? It doesn't matter. They're giving us the opportunity to get this stuff for free. You don't have to pay anything. So be grateful for that, right? It may not be the exact thing that you want. Maybe the character that you like didn't get a skin or whatever it happens to be. But it's still extra stuff that you didn't have to pay for. But I also want to point out that this is a little bit different from a friend giving you a birthday gift. This is a company providing a free thing, a benefit to their customer base. So because of that different interaction, I think it's entirely proper to provide constructive criticism and feedback to the company so that there's a better relationship between the players and Blizzard. Alright, so now let's look at it from the other side, because putting aside the people that are complaining just for the sake of complaining, I think there are some legitimate criticisms about what went on with this event. And again, the goal is not to say that it's just terrible, the goal is to make it better for next time. So the first thing is going to be the total number of items. For new events, it's always 100 plus, and for repeat events, it's 50 plus. But the problem with this one is that about half of them are just player icons, and I think 15 of them are just flags. Now that's all fine and cool, and it makes sense, and it works with the whole Summer Games, you know, Olympic theme. I mean, it works, right? But when you have players saying there's 50 items, and then they look and they see only a couple of skins and some voice lines and stuff, and they're like, where's the rest of it, right? I mean, look at those player icons. Again, I'm not saying you shouldn't do them, but come on. It's a flag. It's already an established thing. It probably takes your artist like 5 minutes to make one of those. So yeah, sure, it's fine as filler, but when it's 50 plus items and about half of them are player icons, you can start to see where people get disappointed when they look at all the new stuff. Also, while you're here, quick little tangent, Blizzard, can you please add a sorting system for the player icons? Also, I kind of think that you should be able to purchase the icons with credits. I know a lot of people want to get certain icons and they just can't because it's all based on luck in loot boxes, and they just want to be able to buy the icon that they want. So please consider those two things. Thank you. Getting back on track with the other items, the skins are what everyone wants to see. It's the big draw, it's the main attraction of any event. But I realize that it probably takes the most time and effort to make those skins as opposed to all the other stuff. So having 6 legendaries or 8 legendaries, I'm not going to gripe about the number of them because I realize there's a lot of effort that has to go into each one. Now, whether or not someone likes it, well, that's subjective. I mean, some people like it, some people won't. That's not really here or there. But I think that there's a way to make more items in the event without having to worry about that stuff. So obviously the skin's gonna take a ton of effort, animating the new emotes and the highlight intros a ton of effort, but then you have other stuff like victory poses. I mean, those are essentially just a snapshot. I mean, you could take any emote that a character has and snapshot it kind of like in the middle and make that a victory pose. I mean, that's not really all that difficult to do. And then, as far as the other stuff, the sprays, okay, that probably takes a little bit of artistic time in order to make new sprays and whatnot, but you can add a ton of voice lines. You could have a new voice line for every single character, for every single event, at minimal effort. And that's what you were originally doing when we had the first year of events. Every character got a voice line. In the second year, they got a second voice line. But now we're in the third year, and some of the characters just aren't getting voice lines anymore. And it seems to me that that is probably the easiest thing that you could do. Now, obviously, you're not going to call in the voice actor to just record one line, but I'm sure you guys have lists of different voice lines that they could possibly have. Give each character like 40, 50, 100 voice lines, right? When next time you have the voice actors come into the studio, they record them all, and then, bam, you've got enough voice lines for new events for the next 10 years. So as long as you're adding like one thing, then it's gonna feel a lot more significant than just, oh, the player icon. Because with the voice line, it's something that can be used in-game all the time, whereas the player icon, it's just, it's just kind of there. Like, they go and they said it once, and then they kind of forget about it, and that's about it, right? So people will feel like they're getting more if you add something like a voice line, even if it's just something simple. The next thing, and this is probably the biggest criticism that I've been hearing, is Lucio Ball for the third year in a row. Now, I personally like the game mode. I think it's fun. I think it's a nice little break from the regular version of the game. But I can certainly understand that people are getting bored with it. It's the same thing year after year. Now, obviously, when you have new players who haven't experienced it, you want to be able to give them that opportunity. But for the players that have been around for a while, they want new stuff. And I don't want to seem like I'm going back on what I said earlier, be happy for what you get, not what you don't get, but at the same time, it's a different relationship. It's customer and business. So Blizzard has an interest in keeping the players happy and excited so that they play more, so that they sell more copies of the game, and all that sort of stuff. But when the players see a new event and they're like, oh, it's the same thing that we had last year and the year before, and they don't really care about it and they're kind of indifferent, then that's going to hurt the player base and Blizzard. So that's not what we want to happen. I think that you're going to have to seriously start looking at creating entirely new events, or at a minimum, creating entirely new game modes for these events. Because I don't think you're going to be able to do a fourth year of Lucio Ball without driving away a bunch of players. Now, the best kind of event that I think you guys have is the Archive, because it's something brand new every single year. I mean, I thought the Uprising event was absolutely fantastic, and then the Retribution event just blew me away. I mean, those two were amazing, but obviously it takes way more effort to make that sort of stuff than, just the Anniversary event or the Summer Games or whatever. So I understand you can't do that for every single event, and I'm not asking you to, but I need to point out that there's a lot of people not very happy with having Lucio Ball being redone year after year after year. Now, I don't have access to your numbers, but I certainly would be interested in knowing what the amount of players are for the first year of Lucio Ball compared to the second year of Lucio Ball and compared to the third year. Of course, you'd have to take into account the total number of active players and all that sort of stuff to find the correct percentages, but I would be interested to see if it's going down or going up. But even if it's going up, I still think there's going to be a perception problem, which can be overall harmful. The last thing I want to mention is the timing of the event itself, because one of the criticisms I've seen quite a few times about the events is that you have a ton of stuff jam-packed at the beginning of the year, and then there's just like a big gap in time, and then you have another couple of events. So I realize that the Anniversary event can't be moved for obvious reasons, and then the Lunar New Year kind of floats depending on where it is in the year, but there's other big gaps in time, and I think you might want to actually consider having mini events. It doesn't have to be any gigantic event. It could just be a couple of skins, maybe a victory pose, a few voice lines, a spray or two, maybe an icon, something like that. A good example of this would be like a 4th of July event. You could have a whole bunch of stuff for Soldier 76, or you could celebrate the first moon landing, and you could give Winston a bunch of stuff, maybe even throw some Hammond stuff in there too. Or another concept would be, rather than having it based on any particular event or anything like that, maybe you just do Hero Spotlight mini events, right? So every now and again when you have a big gap in between two events, you could just throw in a spotlight for whatever character happens to be, Doomfist or Genji or whatever, and you have a legendary skin for that character, you have a couple of voice lines, some sprays and some other stuff, and it's like all about that character for, you know, a week or two, whatever it happens to be. But I think the emphasis would be, because these are mini events and they're not full-blown things, I think this would be a really good opportunity for you to add more stuff to the standard default loot box as well. So rather than having a special loot box for these mini events, just put it in the regular standard one. I mean, people would be really excited for this sort of stuff. Like all of a sudden, oh hey, we got a mini event for D.Va coming up, and there's going to be a new legendary skin, and there's new stuff, and it's going in the standard loot. People would go nuts for that. They would love it. And I think this is just a really good way to kind of fill the gaps in between the major events. It also seems like a pretty good way to give characters items, particularly skins, if they're kind of lacking in that department. So that's a lot of the feedback that I've been getting, combined with some of my own thoughts on the whole situation. And if anyone at Blizzard is actually watching this and you want to get in touch with me for whatever reason, don't hesitate, because, you know, the goal is to improve the game, and I just want to help when I can. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault.